classic introduction videos are just a lot of work. I need to do something easier, something simple, something that won't take much effort. I know, animal companions. How many options could there possibly be for animal companions? Mistakes have been made. Today, we're going to talk about animal companions in Pathfinder 2nd Edition on this episode of The Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello travelers and tourists, my name is Mark and I am the Local Disaster Tour Guide. That's right, I am a storyteller who is not afraid to use unbearable puns. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder. Today, we're going to be looking at animal companion rules in Pathfinder 2e. Recently, I've been doing my classic introduction series for this channel, and I've hit 3 different classes that have access to animal companions as an option for players: the champion, the druid, and the ranger. And in those videos, I mentioned that the animal companion rules were a little complex and I didn't want to dive into them there, but rather I wanted to do a separate video on the subject of animal companions. So that's what this video is. I'm going to be doing an overview of animal companion rules in Pathfinder 2e. I'm going to be talking about the options for accessing animal companions. I'm going to talk about the different types of animal companions that you can possibly get. And I'm going to talk about the ways you can improve your animal companion through play. Now, even though this is going to be a very long video, and even though I'm going to be diving into a lot of different information, let me just go ahead and say this video is going to be an overview. If you're interested in having an animal companion, you are going to want to go and do some extra reading in order to dig a little bit deeper than just the information I will be providing here. Now, this is going to be a very long video and there is a lot of information, so I strongly encourage you check out the timestamps in the video description, because I'm going to be separating out the different topics for this video, because there's definitely a lot of information here and I want you to be able to go back and find the particular information that you're looking for when you need it. For this video, the topics we're going to be covering: first, I'm going to give an overview of what animal companions are in Pathfinder 2e. We will compare them to familiars in 2e, talk about how they're different from one another, and talk about the mechanical role they have inside of the game. Second, we'll talk about how you can access an animal companion, the different choices you can make if you would like to obtain one in play. Third, we'll talk about the different types of animal companions that are available, including a quick reference for how you can build your own animal companion if one of the current options doesn't suit you. Fourth, we're going to talk about what I call animal companion tiers. I rank animal companions on 4 tiers: Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, and I'm going to talk about whether or not there is a possible Tier 5 for animal companions as well. The 5th section of this video will talk about animal companion specializations, which is a choice that you make when your animal companion hits what I call Tier 4. So we'll look at the different options that are available there. And then the final chapter of this video, we're going to go back to the build paths, or the access options for animal companions, and we're going to talk about what distinguishes each path from the others. In other words, the differences between gaining an animal companion as a druid, as a ranger, as a beastmaster, etc. Now, before we dive into all of that, I am pulling information from a lot of different sources here, so really quick, I want to talk about where you can go to read up on these things for yourself. Your most important resource is going to be the core rulebook, and the animal companion section in that book starts on page 214. The vast majority of what you need to know can be found in that section. Animal companions do qualify as minions, so you'll probably want to read up on the minion rules as well. There's a good section on page 301 on minions, and there's also a really good description on minions in the index, page 634 of the core rulebook, so those are some resources you can check out. We're also going to be looking at the options from the Advanced Player's Guide. The APG gives us a lot of different animal companion types, which can be found on page 144. And there are also 2 new archetypes that offer animal companions, the Beastmaster and the Cavalier, which are found on pages 160 and 164 respectively. We're also going to pull a couple of more obscure options for animal companions. From the Lost Omens series, in the Lost Omens World Guide, you can read about indomitable animal companions on page 117 in a sidebar. Yes, this one's a little tricky to find. And in Lost Omens Legends, you can read about the rare genie-touched animal companions. This can be found near the end of the book on page 123. The last resource we're going to pull in is the Animal Trainer archetype, which comes from the Extinction Curse Adventure Path and the book Legacy of the Lost God, which I believe is the second book in that adventure path. I do not personally have Extinction Curse, so I had to access the information for Animal Trainer from the Archives of Netha's website. If you don't have that adventure path, you can find the information there. So if you're interested in reading up on this stuff, those are the places you can go to dive a little bit deeper on this topic. Alright, let's get started. So our first question is, what are animal companions? Animal companions are creatures that you can obtain and take with you on adventures in Pathfinder 2e, which is a description that also applies to familiars. I can have a cat familiar, I can have a cat animal companion. Their statistics both improve as I level, so what's the difference between these two options? Well, to talk about it in its simplest terms, familiars in Pathfinder 2e, Paizo goes out of their way to say, do not use these in combat. Paizo is very, very specific that the familiar rules are not intended as combat options. They're intended as an out-of-combat option for your players. Meaning that the animal companions are the combat version of creatures you can take with you. And this is where I think the first misconception about animal companions can potentially happen. There's a pretty clear distinction in the core rulebook. Familiars are outside of combat, so animal companions therefore should be inside of combat. And if you look at the animal companion options, you can understand how a combat pet concept would fit for these. You have animal companion options like bears and large cats, so they seem well suited to combat. But I don't think it's right to classify animal companions as combat pets. I think it's better to classify animal companions as a combat support pet. Yes, animal companions are more durable than familiars, and yes, they can join you in combat, but it's important to realize that pound for pound, your character is always going to be more effective in combat than your animal companion, and if you rely too heavily on your animal companion to take the brunt of combat, you will probably very quickly be brokenhearted and searching for a new companion. I think it's best to look at animal companions as support companions in combat, there to give you more options and opportunities during combat encounters. Diving into all the reasons for this would take way too long, but as a simple example, animal companions' attacks cap out at expert, and their armor class typically caps out at expert as well. There are some niche cases where an animal companion's AC can go up to master proficiency, but typically when it comes to attack and defense, you're going to be looking at expert as the highest you can get. Meanwhile, companions have the ability to progress to master level saving throws and skill checks, and even have the possibility of getting some legendary skill checks as well. So when you look at the different potential proficiency rankings of your companions, that should clue you in that while they can help you in combat, it's best to see them as combat support options rather than heavy combat participants. If it helps prove this point at all, your party wizard is probably actually going to get expert attacks before your animal companion does. Now, even though your companion doesn't have a heavy combat role, that doesn't mean that you aren't going to have some fun with what they can do. So, let's talk about how you can get an animal companion to take with you on your adventures. Now, this video is being filmed in August of 2021, so there's a real possibility that there will be more options from Paizo in the future for how to access animal companions. But right now, there are essentially 9 paths that you can take to acquire animal companions. 3 of them will come from options from core classes in the game, and the other 6 will come from archetype options found in Pathfinder 2e. Let's talk about the class options first. You can gain an animal companion from the Champion, Druid, and Ranger classes. The Druid and Ranger can both potentially gain an animal companion at level 1, depending on the choices that they make. Meanwhile, the Champion can potentially pick up an animal companion if they choose the Steed option from the Divine Ally class feature. This class feature comes at level 3, so the Champion access to animal companions comes a little bit later. A quick distinction between these: the Druid has the fastest progression overall for their animal companion. The Ranger has the most class options for improving their animal companion, and the Champion has the slowest access, but comes with some very unique options for the animal companion that other classes don't necessarily have access to. It is worth noting for the Champion that the class pushes you in the direction of choosing a companion with the Mount trait, but you are not forced to take an animal companion with the Mount trait. They just kind of set things up where that is the most obvious path for the Champion to take, but it's not the required path. So those are the 3 classes you can use if you would like to get an animal companion. But what if you have a character that's a different class, but you would still like to get an animal companion? Well, that's when you have to look at archetypes. And there are currently 6 options from archetypes that would allow you to get an animal companion. 3 of them are multi-class archetypes for Champion, Druid, and Ranger. So essentially what you would be doing there is taking a multi-class dedication and then picking up the class feats that allow you to access animal companion options. Now, this is probably the slowest route if you are interested in getting an animal companion, and these 3 multi-class dedication archetypes also will cap off the maximum power level of your animal companion lower than some of the other build options I'll be presenting. For the sake of simplicity, the Champion, Druid, and Ranger multi-class dedication archetypes will cap you at Tier 3 animal companions rather than Tier 4. Now, those are obviously still strong options, and those paths are really good if you are interested in picking up not just an animal companion, but other features of those classes. So, for example, if you're playing a rogue and you're interested in picking up some druid magic and an animal companion, then the Druid multi-class archetype is for you. However, I'm not going to deep dive those 3 options because those options have the possibility of animal companions, but you can also take those options and never touch animal companions. Instead, I want to talk about the 3 archetypes that are specific to animal companion options, and that is the Beastmaster, the Cavalier, and the Animal Trainer. The Beastmaster and the Cavalier are both found in the Advanced Player's Guide. Now, the Cavalier is an archetype that is devoted to mounted combat. Before we mentioned that the Champion nudges you in the direction of a mount, with the Cavalier, it's not a nudge, it's a shove. This archetype is all about mounted combat, and if you want to take the Cavalier, you must have an animal companion with the Mount trait. It's not an option, it must have the Mount trait. Overall, the Cavalier is the most focused option when it comes to obtaining an animal companion, but that focus does come with a lot of unique and powerful combat options. The next archetype is the Beastmaster, and the Beastmaster is particularly fun because this is the route you take if you're interested in having multiple animal companions. Now, they only allow you to have one animal companion active at a time, but the ability to switch out different animal companions depending on the situation you're in, that's a really cool option. And so the Beastmaster is fun if you like the idea of collecting this army of different options, of different companions that you can bring along with you. The final archetype that I want to mention here is the Animal Trainer. And this comes from the Extinction Curse Adventure Path in Book 2, Legacy of the Lost God. And this is the archetype if you are interested in a performing animal companion. In Extinction Curse, your party can be members of a circus, and so they created an archetype that is specific to animal companions that can do performances. I'll be honest, Animal Trainer is not my favorite option. I kind of wish they had worked some of the Animal Trainer options into just some of the standard animal companion progression. But if you're interested in the performing companion, this is the path you would want to take. So, now that we've talked about how you can access animal companions, let's move on to the different types of animal companions that are available in play. Now, when it comes to animal companion types, there is a lot of information that goes into each different specific type of animal companion. Each different type of animal companion is going to have a different number of bonus hit points at level 1. It'll have different traits and movement speed and different options just depending on what kind of creature it is. So it's a little bit difficult to hit animal companion types just because there is so much that goes into each individual type of animal companion. However, I think we can categorize the different types of animal companions along 3 important categories: skill proficiencies, support benefit, and advanced maneuvers. We'll get into this a little more when we talk about the tiers of animal companions, but all animal companions come with different skill trainings, and the skill trainings that they have is based largely upon their type. Therefore, a wolf companion and an ape companion will have different trained skills at the start of the game. Now, the majority of companions end up trained in the same 5 skills overall, but that unique skill at first level is often the skill that your companion is going to end up with the highest proficiency in, and so that skill is kind of the standout skill for your companion. Also, every animal companion at level 1 is going to have a unique support benefit that they can use in combat. This is a unique action that your companion can take to aid you in battle. Finally, as your animal companion progresses, they will eventually unlock what are known as advanced maneuvers. And that's kind of what it sounds like, an advanced maneuver or an advanced option for your animal companion to use in combat. It takes a while to get to them, but these options can be very useful. So I think the best way of looking at the types of companions is to examine what skills, support benefits, and advanced maneuvers they offer. So let's fly through these really quick. First up, let's talk about the companion types from the core rulebook. The first option is the Badger, which is trained in survival and has a support benefit that can prevent your enemies from using the step action. It can eventually unlock the Badger's Rage advanced maneuver. Next up is the Bear, which comes with the Intimidation skill and can give you bonus slashing damage in combat, and eventually unlocks the Bear Hug special maneuver. The Bird animal companion is easy to overlook, possibly because it comes with the Stealth skill, but don't count this companion out, because not only can they support you with persistent bleed damage, but they can also support you by dazzling your enemies. Their advanced maneuver is called Flyby Attack. The Cat companion comes with the Stealth skill and inflicts the flat-footed condition by tripping up your opponents. Cat owners everywhere know exactly how this one happens. And they gain access to an advanced maneuver called Cat Pounce. For those of you who are really interested in a pet dinosaur, the Dromaeosaur is the option for you. It comes with the Stealth skill, and its support benefit is this weird mobile flanking ability where it can occupy multiple squares for purposes of giving you flanking bonuses. And it eventually learns the Darting Attack advanced maneuver. In the core rulebook, the only animal companion that comes with the mount trait is the Horse. They are trained in survival, they can support you with bonus charging damage, and they can eventually unlock the Gallop advanced maneuver. Then you have the Snake animal companion, which is also trained in the stealth skill, has the ability to restrict the reactions of your opponents, and can eventually learn the constrict advanced maneuver. Finally, in the core rulebook, we have the Wolf Companion, which has the survival skill and can support you by inflicting a speed penalty on your enemies. They eventually learn the knockdown advanced maneuver. Up next, we're going to talk about the animal companions from the Advanced Player's Guide. The first one is the Ape Companion. It's trained in the intimidation skill and can support you by frightening your opponents, and can even learn the frightening display advanced maneuver. Then you have the uncommon animal companion, the Arboreal Sapling, which is only available to a very small subset of druids. It's trained in the stealth skill, can support you by creating difficult terrain, and can eventually learn the throw rock advanced maneuver. Next up, you have the Bat Companion, which is trained in the stealth skill and can support you by giving your enemies a penalty on their strikes in combat. It can eventually learn the Wing Thrash advanced maneuver. There's also the Boar Companion. It's trained in the survival skill and can support you by providing persistent bleed damage. It can eventually unlock the Boar's Charge advanced maneuver. The Crocodile Companion begins with training in the stealth skill and gains the Latch support benefit. It can eventually unlock the Death Roll advanced maneuver. The Advanced Player's Guide does give us an uncommon mount. For those of you interested in the Riding Drake, it begins with training in the intimidation skill and can support you with fire damage, and eventually unlocks a breath weapon advanced maneuver. There is also the Scorpion Animal Companion, which is trained in the stealth skill and can support you with poison damage. It can eventually unlock the Grab and Sting advanced maneuvers. And then the last animal companion from the APG is the Shark. The Shark begins with training in the stealth skill and can support you with bonus slashing damage. Its advanced maneuver is known as Shred. Now obviously, that just scratched the surface of the options that are available, but let's talk a little bit more about what the animal companion types are supposed to represent. The animal companion types are intended to be relatively generic so that you have the freedom of applying them to many different types of animal companions. For example, the cat animal companion could be a lion or a tiger or a jaguar or a house cat that just refused to go on a diet. But it's possible. Have you tried putting a cat on a diet? Seriously. Paizo deliberately set these different types up so that they can cover a variety of different options in play. With that being said, there is a possibility that these different companions that I just mentioned don't quite cover the animal companion concept that you have in mind. I mean, maybe you're like me and you've seen the teaser videos for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, and that game is based off Pathfinder 1st Edition and has a character riding a Triceratops around. What if I want a Triceratops as my animal companion, but Paizo hasn't released that for 2E yet? Well, if you read close enough and you're creative enough, you can still very easily come up with the animal companion that is right for you. The main section on animal companions in the core rulebook, page 214, actually has the base stat line for every young animal companion. All young animal companions have the same base stat line with a couple of modifiers depending on their type. Therefore, if none of these animal companion types are the right fit for your concept, work with your game master, take that base stat line, figure out what the appropriate modifications would be, and what the appropriate hit points and traits for the creature would be as well, and congratulations, you have very easily created the animal companion that is the right fit for you. It's not very hard to do at all. A while back, I was doing a hypothetical build for Santa Claus using Pathfinder 2E, and I needed a flying reindeer animal companion, so I basically just took the horse animal companion and with a few slight tweaks was able to come up with a reindeer, and then, well, I guess it'd be a spoiler if I told you how it got flying, but just trust me, it doesn't take a lot of work to come up with the stats for the animal companion that is right for you. But so far we've been talking about the different types of animal companions. Now it's time to talk about how we can advance our animal companions. Let's talk about the different tiers of animal companions in Pathfinder 2E. Now, up next, we're going to talk about advancing animal companions. Where do they start? How do they get stronger? How do they improve over the course of the game? And I'm going to go ahead and say that this is one of the areas where I feel like Paizo didn't do quite as good of a job as they should have in clarifying what the rules were doing and how to advance your animal companion. The rules are there, you can find them, but I'm going to admit this is kind of the section on animal companions where it can get a little bit muddy and it can get a little bit confusing. In fact, some of the things I'm going to be using in this section are not Paizo official terminology or game terminology, but rather my terminology, how I divide animal companion progression in my mind so that it makes sense to me. For me personally, I divide animal companions into 4 tiers. Tier 1 is the young animal companion. Tier 2 is the mature animal companion. Tier 3 is the incredible or splendid animal companion. And Tier 4 is the specialized animal companion. I think when you look at companion progression through these 4 tiers, it makes a lot more sense. Regardless of how you get an animal companion, you will always start with a Tier 1 animal companion, which is the young animal companion. The next step up is always the mature animal companion. And with one very specific exception, which we'll talk about at the very end of this video, young animal companions and mature animal companions are always going to advance the same way. Where it really begins getting complex is when you get to Tier 3 and Tier 4 animal companions. Now, Tier 3 animal companions, there is no official game terminology here. This is actually one of the reasons I think animal companions can be confusing for players, is when you get to this point in animal companion progression, suddenly you start getting several options, and it's not necessarily clear what options go where. Tier 3 and Tier 4 both have different options, but Tier 3 options, in my opinion, are not as clearly labeled as they should be. So when it comes to Tier 3, I like to refer to these as incredible animal companions, or in one very notable case, the splendid animal companion. And then the final tier of animal companions, the final upgrade that you can get, is the Tier 4 specialized animal companion. And here, thankfully, Paizo does a better job of being clear that there are several different options or specializations available. So those are the different tiers of animal companions, but what happens at each tier? So Tier 1 animal companions, as we've mentioned, are referred to in the rules as young animal companions. And for the most part with these companions, you're going to be pulling their stats straight out of the core rulebook or the APG respectively. Almost everything you need for these companions is going to be written in their stat block as soon as you open the book. Young animal companions can be accessed as early as level 1 for rangers and druids. They can be accessed at level 3 for champions, and beastmasters, cavaliers, and animal trainers can potentially access them at level 2. All young animal companions are going to be trained in perception, all of their saving throws, unarmored defense, barding, unarmed attacks, and the acrobatics and athletics skills, plus one unique skill determined by their type, which we talked about in the previous section. All young animal companions will have a number of hit points equal to 6, plus their constitution modifier times their level, plus a small number of bonus HP dependent upon their animal companion type. And finally, young animal companions will all have access to a unique support benefit that the animal companion can give you in combat, which again we mentioned in the previous section of this video. Tier 2 animal companions are referred to as mature animal companions, and the progression for any mature animal companion is always going to be the same. Mature animal companions can be accessed at level 4 by druids and by some archetypes, or at level 6 by rangers and champions. At this tier, animal companions will grow by one size category, and it's worth noting here that as animal companions grow, there is a hard cap of large size regardless of the type of companion and regardless of how many size increases they might get. So just be aware as we talk about animal companions that if they would ever get multiple size increases and that increase would take them above large size, they stop at large size. They will get a +1 bump to their strength, dexterity, constitution, and wisdom modifiers. They will gain expert proficiency in perception and all saving throws. Their unarmed attacks will do an extra dice of damage, and they will become trained in the Intimidate, Stealth, and Survival skill. If they already had one of those 3 skills, that skill will instead bump up to Expert. Next up is Tier 3 Animal Companions, which I refer to as Incredible Animal Companions. And the reason I call them Incredible Animal Companions is because, with the exception of the Animal Trainer from the Extinction Curse Adventure Path, every class feat or archetype feat that gives you a Tier 3 Animal Companion always refers to it with the word Incredible. I honestly wish that Paizo had just made Incredible Animal Companion an official game term. It would bring a lot of clarity to how animal companions are supposed to progress. Druids can access animal companions at level 8, and certain archetypes can potentially access animal companions at level 8 as well. The champion and the ranger will gain access to incredible animal companions at level 10. Now, there is one thing about Tier 3 or incredible animal companions that is always true, and that is, this is when your companion will gain access to the advanced maneuver for their particular type of animal. So if you have a cat companion, this is where they get cat pounce. If you have a bear companion, this is where they get bear hug. Regardless of any other choice that you make for a Tier 3 incredible companion, they will always get their advanced maneuver at this point in the game. However, where it gets complicated is your Tier 3 animal companion, you actually get choices. Your companion can begin to deviate in how it progresses and how it grows compared to other companions. Now, the core rulebook gives you 2 possible progressions at this stage. There is the nimble animal companion and the savage animal companion. And if you're using the core rules, these are the only 2 options that you're going to have. However, there are other options available. In the Lost Omens World Guide, in reference to the Realm of the Mammoth Lords, they give a sidebar explaining indomitable animal companions. And then, as a rare trait option from Lost Omens Legends, there are also genie-touched animal companions that are available at this tier as well. Now, nimble and savage appear to always be an option. It's very clear that these are intended to be options that anybody can take as long as they hit the appropriate level and take the appropriate class or archetype feats. If you want a nimble animal companion, if you want a savage animal companion, these options are always available to you. The other 2 that I'm discussing here do have specific narrative ties. The indomitable animal companion is specifically tied in lore to the realm of the Mammoth Lords. Now, as far as I can find, there are no traits associated with the indomitable animal companion, so there is nothing that I have found that says you have to be a Mammoth Lord if you want this particular type of animal companion, but I would talk to your game master if you're interested in the indomitable option. However, the genie-touched animal companion is very specifically tagged as rare, which means this is definitely a game master permission option and not just something you can take anytime you want. Genie-touched animal companions are tied to the land of Kadira and come with very strong elemental flavor and themes to their abilities. Now, this is a personal opinion of me as a storyteller. I would probably be very lenient in allowing my players to access genie-touched animal companions, and I also think that genie-touched animal companions are a strong option if you want to give characters more elemental-styled animal companions. This rule set offers very heavy elemental themes that don't necessarily have to be Djinni or Afriti or something like that. If you just want to have elemental animal companions, this is a route you could go. And as a storyteller, I would be very open to letting one of my players use this option if they were interested in it, but this is very much tagged as a rare option, and it comes from outside of the core rulebook. So this is definitely something where if you are interested in a genie-touched companion, you definitely need to talk to your storyteller about it. But that's 4 options: nimble, savage, indomitable, and genie-touched. What do they do? Well, as we mentioned, All 4 of these options for a Tier 3 animal companion will give you your advanced maneuver. It doesn't matter what else you pick, this will always apply. Nimble animal companions will become experts in acrobatics and unarmored defense. Their attacks will gain +2 damage, and their attacks will now count as magical for purposes of resistances and things like that. And finally, nimble animal companions will get a +2 bonus to their dexterity modifier and a +1 bonus to their strength, constitution, and wisdom modifiers. So think of nimble as the dexterity focused option for your animal companion. Up next is savage. Savage animal companions will get a size increase by 1 step, again up to a maximum of large, and they become expert in the athletics skill. Their attacks gain +3 damage and are also considered magical for purposes of resistances. And they gain a +2 bonus to their strength modifier while increasing their dex, constitution, and wisdom modifiers by +1. So savage is kind of the strength option for your companion. So by this running theme, indomitable companions can kind of be viewed as the tough or con-based advancement option for your companion. They also increase their size category by 1 step, up to a maximum of large. They gain expert proficiency in athletics as well as barding. They gain a +3 bonus to their damage, and their attacks count as magical. And when it comes to their ability bumps, they get +2 to their constitution modifier, and a +1 bonus to their strength, dexterity, and wisdom modifiers. Our final option is the Genie-touched companion, and when you take Genie-touched companion, you have to choose which type of genie that your animal companion has been influenced by. Djinni for air, Ifriti for fire, Mareed for water, and Shaitan for earth. The most important distinction for the Genie-touched animal companion is that they will gain energy resistance based on the type of genie that has influenced them. So for example, an Ifriti-touched companion would gain fire resistance 5 when they reach this level. They also gain +3 damage with their unarmed strikes. Their attacks are considered magical for purposes of resistances. And this is your wisdom-based option. Genie-touched animal companions gain a +2 bonus to their wisdom modifier and a +1 bonus to their strength, con, and dexterity modifiers. Finally, for each of the Genie-touched animal companions, they will potentially gain access to a unique specialization that is only available to them on the basis of the type of genie that they have been influenced by. The last official tier of animal companions for me is Tier 4 Specialized Animal Companions. Druids and certain archetypes can access this at character level 14, while Rangers and Champions can access this at level 16. Specialized Animal Companions will gain access to Expert Unarmed Attacks. They will increase the damage dice for their unarmed attacks by 1 step, and depending upon the choice you made at Tier 3 between Nimble, Savage, Indomitable, and Genie-touched, they will improve their bonus to damage either to +4 or +6. Specialized Animal Companions have Master Proficiency in Perception and all saving throws, and gain a +1 bonus to their Dexterity modifier and a +2 bonus to their Intelligence modifier. And then you will get to pick a specialization for your animal companion, which will have further effects, but we're going to break those down in part 5 of this video when we look at the specializations in specific. So now we're going to talk about the specialization options available to Tier 4 animal companions, and there are 11 different options here, so I'm going to be flying through them pretty quickly, and this is another area where you will probably want to go and read a little more in depth if you are interested in particular specializations for your companion. The core rulebook gives us 7 different options for animal companions. 6 of the options are available to any type of animal companion, and 1 of the options is tied to a very specific type of animal companion. The first option is the Ambusher, which is a specialization that makes your animal companion really good at ambushing foes, sneaking up on them, that kind of thing. They gain the ability to sneak even if they are observed. They get a bump to their stealth skill and to their unarmored defense, which is one of the niche cases where you can actually have an animal companion with master proficiency for their AC. Their dexterity modifier will increase by +1. And if your animal companion is ever rolling initiative separate from you, they get +2 to their initiative checks. The next specialization is called Bully. This gives your companion an increase to their athletics and intimidation skills. a +1 bonus to their strength modifier, and a massive +3 bump to their charisma modifier. I really like that about the bully. Next up is the Daredevil specialization. It will give your animal companion the Deny Advantage ability, as well as bumping their unarmored defense and acrobatics skill. Again, this can potentially take them up to master level proficiency for their armor class. The Daredevil will also get a +1 bonus to their dexterity modifier. One of the simplest yet still very appealing specializations is Racer, and the core of the Racer is just a +10 bonus to its speed. If they have multiple different speeds, you have to choose which speed this bonus applies to, but basically your animal companion gets faster. They also gain legendary proficiency in their fortitude saves and a +1 bonus to their constitution modifier. The next specialization is Tracker, and they're going to bump their survival proficiency, while also gaining the ability to track while moving at full speed and gaining a +1 bonus to their wisdom modifier. I'm not sure if it's the strongest choice, but I love the name Wrecker. For the next specialization, their special ability is they ignore half of an object's hardness when they're attacking an object, so if you want an animal companion that can burst through doors and knock things over, this is the choice for you. They get a bump to their athletics proficiency, and they also get a +1 bonus to their strength modifier as well. Now those were the 6 general specializations. There's one more specialization in the core rulebook, which is available only to the champion. And this specialization is called the Auspicious Companion. This companion gains expert proficiency in the religion skill, the ability to speak one language appropriate to your deity, so for example, good aligned champions would probably have a companion that can speak Celestial. They become emblazoned with the holy symbol of your deity, and their intelligence modifier increases by +2, while their wisdom modifier goes up by +1. It's a unique twist on companions that only champions get, but it can allow for some of those classic fantasy tropes of like the shining white steed and things like that. The final 4 specializations are going to come out of Lost Omens Legends, and each of these specializations is tied to the genie-touched incredible companions that we talked about in the previous section. So in order to take these specializations, you must have taken the Genie Touch choice at Tier 3, and for each specialization, your animal companion must be tied to a specific type of genie. The first specialization is called the Deep Diver, which is associated with the Mareed. This will give your companion a 30-foot swim speed or increase their swim speed by 10 feet, and give them the ability to breathe underwater if they couldn't breathe underwater before. Their Constitution modifier will increase by +1. Their proficiency in the athletics skill will increase to Master, and their proficiency with Barding will increase to Expert. The next specialization is called the Steady Strider, and is tied to Shaitan. Steady Striders ignore difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain created by stone, rock, and loose debris, and gain the ability to move across quicksand, mud, and other similar surfaces as if they were solid terrain. It gains a +2 bonus on its saving throws and on all DCs to resist shove and trip. Its strength modifier increases by +1, and it gains expert proficiency in barding. The next specialization is called the Wildfire Scorcher, and this is tied to the Ifriti. The Wildfire Scorcher increases its energy resistance to fire up to your character level. In addition, any creature that attempts to grab or hit your companion in melee will take 2d6 points of fire damage. It gains legendary reflex saves, expert unarmored defense, and also increases its dexterity modifier by +1. Your final specialization is called the Wind Chaser, and this one is tied to the Djinni. This companion will gain a +20-foot bonus to its speed or its fly speed, or your choice of the two if it has access to both. It gains legendary reflex saves, expert unarmored defense, a +1 bonus to its dexterity modifier, and master proficiency in the acrobatics skill. So those are the common tiers of advancement for the majority of animal companions in the game. Tier 1 is young animal companions, Tier 2 is mature animal companions, Tier 3 is incredible animal companions, Tier 4 is specialized animal companions, but earlier I teased some other options. Now, one of the things that I haven't discussed so far, because honestly it's its own separate progression, is the animal trainer archetype, which gives access to a performance-based animal companion. Their progression is very similar to the other animal companions. They go through young, mature, tier 3, and then specialized. But one of the changes for the animal trainer archetype is at each level of progression, your animal companion will become trained in or will improve their proficiency in the performance skill rather than whatever their normal skill might be. Beyond that, their options are pretty much the same. But what about the mysterious Tier 5 animal companion that I've been referring to? Well, this is a tier of animal companion that I'm not sure if it deserves its own tier or not, but it's special enough I'm going to mention it anyways. The animal companion for champions does not progress as fast and doesn't have as many options as a lot of other animal companions, and you might look at the champion and think that they kind of get the short end of the stick when it comes to options for animal companions, but champions are the only class where you could argue they actually go all the way up to a tier 5 on animal companions with the celestial or fiendish animal companion options. This is a very late game option that can be used to give your animal companion the ability to fly. Remember earlier when I told you that I figured out how to make flying reindeer for Santa Claus? This is how I did it. I rolled up Santa Claus as a champion and gave them a celestial flying reindeer. Is a flying speed enough to classify champion animal companions as tier 5 or in their own category? I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's special enough to note here. So as an honorary tier 5, the champion stands alone with the potential ability to access celestial or fiendish animal companions. Okay, so now we've talked about the types of animal companions, the way your animal companions improve and progress throughout the game, and the different options you have available at different points during your companion's progression. Now I want to circle back to an earlier topic and talk about how your class or archetype that gives you access to your animal companion is going to impact your build. A ranger, a druid, a champion, a beastmaster, an animal trainer, and a cavalier will all have access to young, mature, incredible, and specialized animal companions, but each of these different options will impact their animal companion in specific ways, and you want to keep these things in mind when you're building out the concept for your animal companion. Now, the champion, we've already kind of hit on the unique options for the champion. They gain access to the unique specialization of auspicious animal companion, and towards the end of their progression, they can actually get a celestial or fiendish animal companion. And I just want to say, I think it's a very interesting balance that Paizo has done with the different build paths. The champion animal companion is arguably the slowest access and slowest progression. They have fewer options than a lot of the other paths you can take for your animal companion, but they pay off the champion by giving the champion access to unique options that other classes and archetypes don't get. So if you're interested in the champion and you want a holy or celestial or evil and fiendish themed companion, this is the route for you. Also, I touched on this earlier, but do bear in mind that the champion is built under the assumption that you're probably going to take an animal companion with the mount trait. Again, you don't have to do this, but the game kind of assumes that that's the progression that you're building towards. So some of the internal mechanics will reward you more clearly if you go that route. One of the things I think that's really interesting for a champion build is if your game master is okay with the riding drake, you can eventually have a flying drake with a breath weapon as your animal companion. The champion has a build option that ultimately becomes a dragon rider. That's cool. Now, the druid class actually has the fewest class feats targeting animal companions. In fact, they get young, mature, incredible, and specialized animal companion as class feats, and then the only other class feat that I have seen for them in regards to animal companions is the side-by-side class feat. Other than that, they really don't get class feats for their companions. Now, it is worth noting, Druids have the fastest progression for animal companions, so druids are going to level up their companions faster than other classes, but in terms of supporting class feats, they get the fewest. Why is that? Well, that's because druids are primal spellcasters. Of all of the options we're talking about here, druids have the most magical power to back them up, so druids really don't need class feats to buff their animal companions. They have spells to do that. So be aware that if you're playing a druid and looking at animal companions, you're not going to have as many options built into your class feat progression, but the ability to buff your companion with your spells is going to be critical to your gameplay. Now, Rangers have options aplenty. Rangers have tons of class feats aimed directly at animal companions. This includes some of the standard class feats like Side by Side that we mentioned for Druid, as well as unique focus spells that the Ranger can cast to the benefit of their animal companion, including the Enlarge Companion spell that can make your companion huge size, at least temporarily. Rangers have a plethora of options, but I think the most important option to bear in mind with Rangers is to note that all Ranger animal companions will benefit from your Hunt Prey ability and any bonuses that might trigger when targeting your prey. So, if you have bonus precision damage when you shoot your prey with your bow, your animal companion will get bonus precision damage when they attack that same prey with their unarmed strike. Rangers have a variety of options, but I think the most important thing to bear in mind is how your Hunt Prey ability will affect you and your animal companion working in tandem to take down a target. I'm not going to go into the effects of multi-class archetypes here because it's basically the same as your classes, only slower. But I do want to talk about the 3 special archetypes that can give you animal companions as well. Animal Trainer, which comes from Extinction Curse, gives you a unique animal companion progression focused on the performance skill, as well as a few unique abilities that resolve around the performance skill. It's flavorful, it's fun. I really like that it's an option. My only complaint about Animal Trainer as an archetype is I wish they had built some of this into the core rulebook options. I hate that there is a completely separate archetype for Animal Trainer from everything else in the game. For example, it bothers me that a Beastmaster cannot train his animal companions to perform. Why is that? Me personally, I would probably house rule some kind of special access between the Animal Trainer archetype and other archetypes in the game, but that's a personal opinion of mine. If you're interested in the Animal Trainer options, but also want to combine them with other options, you may need to talk to your Game Master about that because right now they are very clearly separated in terms of the rules. Still, if you're interested in the Performing Companion and pushing your companion to legendary feats of performance, then the Animal Trainer archetype is for you. The Cavalier archetype, which we mentioned before, is focused very heavily on mounts as animal companions. As we said, the champion encourages you to take a mount, the Cavalier demands that you take a mount. But since you're focused on mounted combat as a Cavalier, you do get a lot of unique actions and options that are not available to other animal companion classes and archetypes. Things like the quick mount action or the defend mount reaction are unique to the Cavalier archetype, and you can eventually take the level 20 archetype feat Legendary Rider. So if mounted combat is your thing, Cavalier definitely is going to have the focus on that particular playstyle and allow you to push that particular set of abilities to their natural maximum. However, I think the most interesting of all of the archetypes and the most interesting of the various paths available in 2E has to be the Beastmaster. Mostly because the Beastmaster is the one that allows you to take multiple animal companions. Why settle for one when you can have several animal companions? And by the way, it's explicit in the rules that if you have multiple animal companions, they all progress at the same time. You don't have to choose between having a tier 2 bear companion and a tier 1 wolf companion. If one of your animal companions levels up, all of them do. I really love that about the Beastmaster, and it's actually something that sets 2E's Beastmaster apart from a lot of other RPGs. You can have several different, very effective animal companions, and yes, you only get one at a time, but the ability to switch out your companion based on the situation you're in is just absolute gold, and I would love to play a Beastmaster in a game sometime. If you want a whole bunch of different companions, Beastmaster is definitely for you. Now, it is worth noting, Beastmaster is only slightly slower in animal companion progression compared to the Druid, and Beastmaster has access to almost all of the Druid and Ranger feats, so with the exception of Primal Spells and Hunt Prey, the Beastmaster Animal Companion can do almost everything the Druid or Ranger Companion is able to do. So Beastmaster is definitely a very strong and focused choice if you're just wanting to push your Animal Companion or pack of Animal Companions as far as possible. But those are the distinguishing features of the different paths that you can take to accessing Animal Companions and how they compare to one another in terms of what you can do with your Animal Companions. Whew. So, I think that's everything. I think we have hit all of the main points in regards to Animal Companions. We've talked about their role in the 2E rules, we've talked about the different paths to access them, we've talked about the types of Animal Companions, we've talked about the different tiers of Animal Companions, we've broken down the different options for incredible Animal Companions and specialized Animal Companions. We compared and contrasted the different paths for accessing Animal Companions so that you know the differences between different classes that have Animal Companions. We have hit so many different points today, and I'm going to be honest, I'm afraid I've missed something. There is a lot to Animal Companions, and there's a real possibility that I have overlooked something. I pored over all of my books, I pored over Archives of Nethys, and I've tried to be as thorough as possible. But if I have missed something, definitely let me know in the comments down below. In fact, this is the section of the video where I turn the conversation over to you. What are your thoughts on the Animal Companion rules in Pathfinder 2E? Do they make a little more sense now, or do you still have questions that you would like me to answer? If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try to reply to those. Let me know what your favorite types of Animal Companions are, and let me know what options for Animal Companions seem the most compelling to you. In the future, if there are expanded rules for Animal Companions, I will try to do an update video, though it will be a companion video, not a full update, because this thing has been a long recording process. But feel free to leave your thoughts and comments on Animal Companions as a rule set in Pathfinder 2E, and let me know if you have any good Animal Companion stories that you'd like to share. If you'd like to support this channel, the easiest way you can do it is to like the video and share it. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more content like this and want to have more conversations about TTRPGs. And if you're interested in being a part of the local Disaster Tour Guide community, I have a free Discord group that I welcome you to join. There's a link to it in the video description, and you're welcome to come check us out. Finally, for those of you who are interested in supporting me financially as a content creator, I do have a Patreon page available. I will admit at this time that my Patreon page is very simple. I do hope to grow my page over time, but if you're interested in getting in now and helping me as I get my Patreon page up and running, I've got a link to that in the video description as well, and even a small amount of support goes a long way. But this video has been really long, and it's getting harder and harder to talk, so I think I'm going to call the video here. Thank you so much for joining me, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, and have a wonderful day.